The Galactic Council had existed for 3,000 years. In all that time, wars followed strict rules. Armies fought armies in open space. Fleets met fleets at agreed locations. Civilians were never touched. Military bases had clear markings. Everyone knew how war worked. Everyone followed the same rules. Then the Krynoth attacked human colony Epsilon 7 without warning. Commander Jake Morrison stood in the council chambers watching the alien delegates react to humanity's proposal. The holographic display showed their shocked faces. The Krynoth had killed 15,000 human civilians in an orbital strike. No warning, no declaration, no honor, just death from the sky. You cannot do this, Ambassador Veltic said. His scales turned pale green with worry. You want to send what exactly? Special forces, Jake said calmly. Soldiers trained for different kinds of fighting. There is no such thing, Veltix argued. War has rules, structure, order. You are talking about soldiers who ignore these rules? Not ignore, Jake replied. We follow our rules, just not your rules. The Council had never heard of such a concept. In their wars, armies lined up and fought. Ships met in space and exchanged fire. The idea of small groups sneaking into enemy territory frightened them. The idea of striking without warning seemed barbaric. The idea of soldiers who operated in shadows was simply wrong. We have proper ways to handle this, another delegate said. The Krynoth will face sanctions, trade restrictions, diplomatic pressure. In time they will learn. In time they will kill more people, Jake interrupted. We do not wait for the next attack. We stop the threat now. The Council voted against humanity's plan. They wanted traditional responses. Diplomatic meetings, economic pressure, slow, proper, civilized methods. Humanity thanked them politely and sent the special forces anyway. The Krynoth prepared for retaliation. They built up their defenses. They gathered their fleets. They stationed soldiers at every base. They expected humanity to come at them directly, following proper military protocol. What they got was Lieutenant Kate Sullivan and 12 soldiers appearing inside their main command center on their home planet. The mission lasted 17 minutes. When it ended, the Krynoth military leadership no longer existed. Kate's team was back on their ship before the enemy knew what happened. The galaxy watched in confusion and horror. How did humans bypass all the defenses? How did they reach the home planet itself? How did they know exactly where to strike? The answer was simple but alien to the Council. Humans had been fighting each other for thousands of years. They had learned every possible way to wage war. They had practiced on each other across centuries. By the time they reached space, they were experts. The Krynoth tried to understand what happened. Their security chief reviewed the recordings over and over. The sensors showed nothing unusual. The defensive shields never detected a threat. The guards saw nothing wrong. 12 humans had simply appeared in the most secure facility in Krynoth space, destroyed their command structure, and vanished. How is this possible? The Krynoth war leader demanded. We have the best technology, the strongest defenses, the most advanced sensors. His advisors had no answers. The humans had used methods the Krynoth could not comprehend, stealth technology beyond their understanding, tactics that made no sense, weapons that left no trace. But it was not just technology. The humans moved with purpose and precision. They knew exactly where to go. They knew exactly what to destroy. They knew exactly when to leave. This was not luck or chance. This was training and experience. The Galactic Council called an emergency session. Every species sent representatives. They all wanted answers. How did humans do this? Why could nobody stop them? Jake Morrison explained it as simply as he could. We have fought wars for our entire history. Not just big wars between nations. Small wars, secret wars, wars in shadows. We learned because we had to. But your technology, someone protested. You must have special equipment. Technology helps, Jake admitted. But it is not the main factor. Our advantage is knowledge. We know how to find weaknesses in any system. We know how to move without being seen. We know how to strike without warning. We have thousands of years of experience doing exactly this. The delegates looked uncomfortable. They had never considered warfare from this angle. In their civilized galaxy, wars were public affairs. Declarations were made. Rules were followed. Honor was maintained. You are describing chaos, Veltic said quietly. No, Jake corrected. We are describing controlled chaos. There is a big difference. The Council wanted details. How did the humans train these special forces? What made them different from normal soldiers? How could 12 people defeat an entire military command? Kate Sullivan tried to explain. A special forces soldier is not just a fighter. We gather intelligence. We sabotage enemy equipment. We train resistance groups. We conduct negotiations. We eliminate specific targets. We adapt to any situation with minimal support. But you operate outside military law, someone accused. We operate under our own laws, Kate replied. Very strict laws. But yes, we operate differently than your conventional forces. That is the entire point. The truth was even more complex. Human special forces drew from every conflict in human history. Ancient tactics from Earth's earliest wars. Guerrilla warfare from jungle fighters. Urban combat from city battles. Psychological operations from Cold Wars. Counter-terrorism from modern conflicts. Everything humans had learned about warfare, distilled into elite units. The Kreenoth demanded protection from the Council. They wanted rules against this kind of warfare. They wanted human special forces declared illegal. They wanted punishment for humanity's actions. The Council debated. Some agreed with the Kreenoth. This style of warfare violated everything they believed about civilized conflict. Other species pointed out that the Kreenoth had attacked first, killing civilians without warning. While they debated, the humans acted again. Kreenoth supply convoys started disappearing. Not destroyed in battle, just gone. Ships would leave one port and never arrive at the next. No wreckage, no distress signals. Just empty space where a convoy should have been. Communications networks failed at critical moments. Orders never reached their destinations. Reports contained false information. The Kreenoth military began to distrust their own systems. Officers received contradictory commands. Units moved to wrong locations. Weapons shipments arrived at the wrong bases. The careful organization of the Kreenoth military started to unravel. What are they doing to us? The Kreenoth war leader screamed at his staff. We are not even fighting. Where is their army? Where is their fleet? His staff had no answers. The humans were not fighting a traditional war. They were fighting a shadow war. Small teams operating independently, striking at infrastructure instead of armies, attacking supply lines instead of bases, destroying organization instead of soldiers. It was efficient and terrifying. The Kreenoth could not defend against an enemy they could not find. They could not fight back against attacks that came from nowhere. They could not win a war that followed no rules they understood. Major Lisa Chen briefed the Galactic Intelligence Committee. They wanted to understand human methods. They wanted to learn how to counter these tactics. They needed to know if humanity posed a threat to everyone. You are asking the wrong questions, Lisa said. You want to know our specific techniques. You want to copy our technology. But that is not how this works. Then explain it to us, the committee chair demanded. Lisa thought for a moment. Human special forces work because we think differently. We look at any system and see weaknesses. We examine any defense and find gaps. We study any organization and identify pressure points. We have practiced this for thousands of years, not against aliens, but against each other. Surely your technology gives you an advantage, someone insisted. Some, Lisa agreed. But mostly we succeed because we understand warfare at a fundamental level. We know that every system has flaws. Every defense has blind spots. Every organization has vulnerabilities. We know this because we have exploited these weaknesses throughout our history. The committee members exchanged worried looks. They were beginning to understand. Humans were not just technologically advanced. They were strategically evolved. Thousands of years of constant warfare had shaped how they thought about conflict. You are saying any human can do this? Someone asked. No, Lisa said. Special forces soldiers are exceptional even among humans. They train for years. They are tested constantly. Only a small percentage qualify. But yes, they draw from a deep well of human experience with warfare. The meeting ended with more questions than answers. The committee could not comprehend human warfare because their own experience was so limited. They had fought clean, honorable wars for millennia. Humans had fought dirty, desperate wars for just as long. Back on the Resolute, Jake Morrison reviewed reports from his teams. 40 different operations running simultaneously across Kreenoth space, each team working independently but coordinating perfectly, supply lines disrupted, communications compromised, military organization collapsing. The council is frightened, Kate Sullivan said, joining him. They do not know if we are saving them or threatening them. Jake nodded. They will learn. War is not what they thought it was. We are... Krynoth warlord Thexnar did not believe in ghosts. He believed in shields and sensors and guns. His fortress on the moon of Carthax was supposed to be impossible to reach. Defense platforms surrounded it. Warships patrolled constantly. Sensors watched every approach. Guards stood at every entrance. He believed in all of this until Captain Ryan Hayes walked into his command room, placed a small data chip on his desk, and walked back out. Thexnar stared at the chip for a full minute. Then he called his security chief. "Explain this," he said, his voice dangerously calm. The security chief reviewed the recordings. He watched them 10 times, 20 times, 100 times. A human had entered the fortress. The human had passed 17 security checkpoints. He had walked through 3 different scanner systems. He had moved past an entire company of guards. And nobody had stopped him. "How did this happen?" Thexnar demanded. The security chief had no answer. The human had not used stealth technology that they could detect. He had not worn any disguise that registered on their systems. He had not fought anyone. He had simply walked through the fortress like he belonged there, like he had every right to be there. He moved with confidence, the security chief finally said. Nobody questioned him because he acted like he was supposed to be there. "That is impossible," Thexnar said. "Our guards are trained to challenge anyone they do not recognize." "Watch the recording again," the security chief suggested. "Watch how he moves. He does not hesitate. He does not look nervous. He walks directly to where he is going. Every guard who saw him assumed some other guard had already cleared him." Thexnar watched again. The security chief was right. The human had used the most basic trick imaginable. He had acted like he belonged and everyone had believed him. It was so simple that it should not have worked. But it had. He activated the data chip. Information flooded his screens. Tactical data on every Krynoth military installation, schedules for guard shifts, names and habits of commanders, locations of supply depots, communications codes, everything. At the bottom was a message. "We could have killed you. We chose information instead. Choose peace." Thexnar chose to ignore the warning. He doubled his security. He implemented new scanning protocols. He ordered guards to question everyone. He prepared his next attack on human space. 3 days later, every Krynoth military ship lost power at exactly the same moment. Not permanently, just for 60 seconds. Complete darkness. No weapons, no shields, no sensors. Then power returned and everything worked normally again. In those 60 seconds, humans could have destroyed the entire Krynoth fleet. Every ship was defenseless. Every crew was blind. It would have been a massacre. But the humans did nothing. They just proved they could. The message was even clearer than before. "We own your systems. We control your networks. We can end this war whenever we want. We choose not to. Yet. The galaxy's intelligence services tried desperately to understand human capabilities. How had they compromised Krynoth networks? How had they infected every ship simultaneously? How had they done it without anyone noticing?" Major Lisa Chen stood before the Galactic Intelligence Committee again. They demanded answers. They needed to know if humans could do the same thing to their systems. "You are asking the wrong questions again," Lisa said. "You want to know the specific method we used. But that is not important." "It is very important to us," the committee chair said sharply. "No," Lisa insisted. "What matters is that we found a way. We always find a way. If you close one vulnerability, we will find another. That is what we do." "But surely you must have—" "Let me explain something about human warfare," Lisa interrupted. "We do not rely on single methods. We use hundreds of different approaches. Sometimes we use advanced technology. Sometimes we use social engineering. Sometimes we bribe people. Sometimes we convince them we are on their side. Sometimes we just walk in the front door acting like we belong." The committee members looked at each other nervously. This was worse than they thought. They could defend against specific threats. But how did you defend against an enemy that constantly changed tactics? "The Krynoth case is instructive," Lisa continued. "We did not use just one approach. We combined multiple methods. Electronic warfare to compromise their systems. Human intelligence to gather information. Physical infiltration to prove we could reach anyone. Psychological operations to make them doubt themselves." "That is too many variables," someone protested. "How do you coordinate all of that?" "Practice," Lisa said simply. "Thousands of years of practice. Humans have been doing this to each other since we learned to form groups. We infiltrate. We deceive. We sabotage. We manipulate. Not because we are evil, but because these methods work when you are outnumbered or outgunned. The committee chair leaned forward. Are you saying humans are naturally deceptive? I am saying humans are naturally adaptive, Lisa corrected. When we face a superior enemy, we do not fight them directly. We find their weaknesses. We attack their supply lines. We turn their own people against them. We make them defeat themselves. The meeting continued for hours. The committee wanted specific details about human methods. Lisa gave them general principles instead. She knew that specific techniques could be countered, but the mindset behind those techniques could not. Meanwhile, the Krynoth military was collapsing, not from battles. From confusion and fear, supply officers no longer trusted their inventory reports. Commanders questioned whether their orders were genuine. Ship captains doubted their sensor readings. Soldiers wondered if their fellow soldiers were actually human agents. The paranoia was as destructive as any weapon. Units stopped coordinating because they feared false orders. Ships stayed in port because captains did not trust their navigation systems. Attacks were canceled because intelligence reports seemed suspicious. Sergeant Pete Bradley watched this from his observation post on a captured Krynoth station. His team had taken the station 3 weeks ago without firing a shot. They had simply broadcast fake evacuation orders. The Krynoth garrison had abandoned the base, believing a reactor failure was imminent. It is almost sad, Pete said to his team. They are defeating themselves. That is the point, his second-in-command replied. Make the enemy do our work for us. Pete nodded. It was a fundamental principle of special operations. Why fight when you can deceive? Why lose soldiers when you can win through manipulation? Why destroy when you can subvert? The Galactic Council called another emergency session. The Krynoth representative demanded action. Human special forces were dismantling his civilization without fighting a single proper battle. They are cheating, he insisted. They are not following the rules of war. Jake Morrison stood to respond. There are no universal rules of war. There are only your traditions, your preferences, your limitations. Humans learned long ago that following expected patterns gets you killed. So you admit to dishonorable tactics, the Krynoth representative said triumphantly. I admit to effective tactics, Jake replied. Honor is a luxury afforded to those with advantages. When you are weaker, you use intelligence instead of strength. When you are outnumbered, you use deception instead of direct confrontation. When you are outgunned, you attack supply lines instead of armies. That is cowardice, someone said. That is survival, Jake shot back. And it works. The Krynoth attacked us without warning, killing thousands of civilians. Now they complain because we do not line up our armies for them to shoot at. They want us to fight their kind of war. We refuse, Feltic spoke up. The Council must address this. Human methods are destabilizing. If every species adopts these tactics, civilized warfare becomes impossible. Civilized warfare, Jake repeated slowly. You mean warfare with rules that protect the strong and handicap the weak? Rules that ensure traditional powers stay in control. Rules that make war predictable and manageable. Yes, Feltix admitted. Without rules, war becomes chaos. War is chaos, Jake said firmly. You have just been fortunate enough to avoid learning that lesson. Humans learned it the hard way, fighting each other for thousands of years. We learned that the side willing to adapt always beats the side bound by tradition. The Council had no response to that. They were seeing their comfortable view of warfare shattered. War was supposed to be honorable, organized, predictable. Humans were showing them it could be none of those things and still be devastatingly effective. Back on the Resolute, Kate Sullivan trained a new group of Special Forces operators. These soldiers had already completed basic training. They were already skilled fighters, but Special Forces required more. You are learning to think differently, Kate told them. A normal soldier learns to follow orders and execute plans. A Special Forces operator learns to improvise and adapt. You will often work with no support, no backup, and no clear instructions. You need to make good decisions under extreme pressure. She pulled up a training scenario. You are alone in enemy territory. Your mission is to destroy a communications hub. But when you arrive, you find civilians working in the building. What do you do? The trainees offered various solutions. Most involved finding alternative approaches or delaying the mission. Kate nodded approvingly. Good. You understand that we avoid civilian casualties whenever. The Krynoth Dominion collapsed in 6 weeks. No massive space battles. No planetary invasions. No fleets destroying each other. Just a quiet, systematic dismantling of their ability to make war. Colonel Jack Morrison coordinated everything from the Resolute. His operations room showed 40 different Special Forces teams working across Krynoth space. Each team operated independently. Each pursued different objectives. Together, they destroyed an empire. Team 7 reports the weapons factory on Kelvar 3 is shut down, his operations officer said. No casualties. They convinced the workers there was a safety problem and locked the facility. Team 12 extracted the Krynoth general who wanted to negotiate. He is on his way to neutral space now. Team 3, sir. Team 3 stole a Krynoth destroyer. Jack allowed himself a small smile. Sergeant Pete Bradley had a talent for dramatic gestures. Stealing an enemy warship was exactly his style. The reports kept coming. Supply convoys diverted to wrong destinations. Communications networks reporting false information. Military orders that contradicted each other. Officers receiving promotions or reassignments that never actually happened. The entire Krynoth command structure was drowning in confusion. How are they doing this? A visiting council observer asked Jack. The Krynoth are not stupid. Surely they can see they are being manipulated. They see it, Jack agreed, but they cannot stop it. Every time they fix one problem, we create 2 more. Every time they secure one system, we compromise another. They are fighting an enemy they cannot see using methods they do not understand. But your teams must be discovered eventually, the observer insisted. Some are, Jack admitted. We lose people. Missions fail, but for every team that gets caught, 10 others succeed. And even the failures teach us something. We adapt faster than the enemy can respond. The observer watched the displays showing team movements and objectives. This is not warfare. This is chaos. This is asymmetric warfare, Jack corrected. When you cannot match the enemy's strength, you attack their weaknesses. When you cannot win conventional battles, you change the nature of the conflict. Humans have been doing this for thousands of years. The Galactic Council demanded regular briefings on human operations. They were both fascinated and horrified by what they saw. War was supposed to be predictable, organized, follow clear patterns. Human special forces made war into something fluid and unpredictable. Ambassador Velthix questioned Jake Morrison during one such briefing. How do your soldiers operate without clear command structure? How do they coordinate when they are scattered across an entire civilization? Training, Jake said. Our special forces operators are taught to think independently. They understand the overall objective. They know our principles and methods. Then we trust them to make good decisions in the field. But without direct control, how do you prevent mistakes? We do not, Jake admitted. Mistakes happen. Missions fail. Sometimes our people make bad choices, but overall, giving them freedom to adapt works better than rigid control. They can respond to changing situations faster than any centralized command could. This concept troubled many council members. Their militaries operated on strict hierarchy and clear orders. The idea of soldiers making strategic decisions on their own seemed dangerous. Kate Sullivan tried to explain it differently. Think of it like this. We train our people for years to make them experts. Then we give them missions and let them use their expertise. If we micromanaged every decision, we would waste all that training. But what if they disagree with orders? Someone asked. Then they discuss it with their commanders, Kate said. We encourage questions. We want our people to think critically. A soldier who blindly follows orders is less valuable than one who understands why those orders exist. This was another foreign concept. Most galactic militaries valued obedience above all else. Humans valued intelligent initiative. The Krynoth tried desperately to adapt. They increased security everywhere. They changed all their codes daily. They rotated personnel constantly. They implemented new verification procedures for every order. Nothing worked. The humans adapted faster than the Krynoth could respond. Lieutenant Ben Walker's team demonstrated this perfectly. They were assigned to disable a Krynoth command center. The facility had been recently upgraded with new security measures specifically designed to counter human infiltration. Ben studied the security for 2 days. Then he called his team together. We cannot get through their new defenses, so we are not going to try. Sir? One of his soldiers asked. The facility draws power from a central station 3 kilometers away, Ben explained. The power station has much weaker security because nobody thinks of it as a military target. We hit the power station. When the command center loses power, their security systems fail. The mission went perfectly. The power station was disabled quietly. The command center went dark. By the time emergency power came online, Ben's team had already completed their objectives and departed. The Krynoth security chief reviewed the incident with growing despair. They did not even try to breach our defenses. They found a completely different approach. This was the essence of human special operations. Never do what the enemy expects. Always look for the indirect approach. Always find the weakness nobody thought to protect. Major Lisa Chen led a different kind of mission. Her team was not assigned to destroy anything or kill anyone. They were assigned to recruit. There were Krynoth citizens who opposed their government's war, soldiers who thought the leadership was wrong, officers who wanted peace. Lisa's job was to find these people and organize them. "We are not asking you to fight your own people," she told a Krynoth officer who had secretly contacted her. "We are asking you to give us information. Locations of military assets, plans for upcoming operations, internal communications." "That is treason," the officer said nervously. "That is ending a war your leaders cannot win," Lisa corrected. "Every day this continues, more of your people die. You can help stop it," the officer agreed. So did dozens of others. Soon humans had sources throughout the Krynoth military. Information flowed constantly. Plans were known before they were executed. Movements were tracked in real time. "We have eyes everywhere," Jack Morrison said during a council briefing. "Not because our technology is better, because we convinced their own people to work with us." "That is manipulation," someone accused. "That is intelligence work," Jack replied. "We identify people with reasons to help us. We appeal to those reasons. We offer them something they want. In this case, we offer peace. And you do not see this as dishonest?" "I see it as effective," Jack said. "The Krynoth people are not our enemies. Their leadership is. We are helping their people end a war their leaders started." This distinction was important to humans. Special Forces missions often involved working with local populations, building relationships, earning trust, offering help. It was not just about destruction. It was about creating allies. Sergeant Laura Mitchell's team specialized in this. They had been living in a Krynoth city for a month, posing as refugees. They ran a medical clinic that treated locals for free. They helped repair damaged infrastructure. They became part of the community. "Why are you doing this?" a local asked Laura one day. "You are human soldiers. You should be fighting us." "We are not at war with you," Laura said. "We are at war with your government. There is a difference. The local considered this, but you are still enemies." "Only if you want to be," Laura replied. "We would rather be friends. When this war ends, someone needs to help rebuild. We want to be trusted when that time comes." This was long-term thinking that most galactic militaries did not practice. Win the battle, then worry about what comes next. Humans planned for aftermath during the conflict itself. The medical clinic served another purpose. People talked while waiting for treatment. They mentioned military movements they had seen. They complained about new security measures. They gossiped about officers and officials. Laura's team gathered more intelligence from casual conversation than most species got from dedicated spy networks. "You use civilians as spies," a council observer accused. "We listen to civilians who volunteer information," Laura corrected. "Big difference. We never force anyone to help us. We never threaten them. We just create situations where people want to talk to us. That is still manipulation. That is still human intelligence work," Laura said. "We have been doing this for thousands of years. Every resistance movement in human history used these methods. Every successful rebellion relied on local support. We are very, very good at building networks. The Krynoth government started to lose control of their own territory, not because humans conquered it, because the local population stopped cooperating with their government. Supplies were accidentally delivered to wrong locations. Intelligence reports were mistakenly shared with humans. Security codes were unfortunately compromised. Officials found themselves isolated, unable to trust their own people. "We have lost this war," a senior Krynoth leader finally admitted during a secret communication with human representatives. "Not because you defeated our military, because you defeated our society." Jake Morrison accepted the surrender offer. The terms were generous. The Vrexian hive came from beyond known space. Nobody knew where they originated. Nobody knew what they wanted. They just came, consuming everything in their path. The hive was unlike any enemy the galaxy had faced. Not individual ships, but massive organic vessels that moved as one. Not separate commanders, but a collective consciousness that directed every action simultaneously. They did not negotiate. They did not retreat. They simply consumed. The Galactic Council's traditional military responses failed completely. Fleets engaged the hive and were overwhelmed by sheer numbers. Defensive positions were bypassed as the hive found new routes. Entire sectors fell in weeks. Billions died. Ambassador Veltix came to Earth with the delegation. His scales were dull with stress. His movements were tired. "We need your help," he said to General Nicole Price. "We need your special forces." Nicole studied the tactical data on the Vrexian hive. The information was grim. The hive adapted quickly to any strategy. It learned from every engagement. It coordinated perfectly across vast distances. "This is bad," she said simply. "We have lost 14 worlds," Veltix continued. "Casualties are in the billions. Our conventional forces cannot adapt fast enough. Every time we develop a new tactic, the hive counters it within days. You want us to fight a hive mind with special operations," Nicole said. "That is a tall order." "We are asking because nobody else can do this," Veltix admitted. "Your special forces operate in ways the hive has never encountered. Perhaps that will give us an advantage." Nicole considered carefully. "We will help. But we do this our way. No council oversight. No operational restrictions. No debates about proper methods. You give us the mission, and let us execute it however we see fit." The council agreed immediately. They had no choice. Traditional warfare was failing. Desperate times required desperate measures. "One more thing," Nicole added. "When this is over, you do not get to condemn the methods we had to use. If we do terrible things to win, you accept that you asked us to do them." Veltix nodded slowly. "Agreed." Captain Danny Foster led the first reconnaissance missions into Vrexian-controlled space. His team spent weeks observing the hive from concealment. What they found was both fascinating and terrifying. The hive operated on principles completely alien to individual consciousness. Every ship, every creature, every unit moved with perfect coordination. They did not communicate in ways humans could intercept. They simply knew what every other part of the hive knew. "Traditional infiltration will not work," Danny reported back. "There are no individuals to impersonate. No passwords to steal. No security systems to bypass. The hive knows every part of itself instantly. So we cannot sneak in," Nicole said. "What can we do?" "We can disrupt," Danny suggested. "Hive minds need coordination. They need to share information. They need synchronization. If we can interfere with that, we can create chaos." "How do you disrupt something that operates on principles we do not understand?" "We study it until we do understand," Danny said. "Humans have fought coordinated networks before. Not alien hive minds, but the principle is similar. Distributed organizations that share information and adapt quickly. We learned how to disrupt them." The campaign against the Vrexian hive became a learning experience for everyone involved. Human special forces had to adapt their methods to face an enemy, completely unlike anything they had encountered. Sergeant Laura Mitchell's team spent 3 weeks hidden near a Vrexian swarm just watching, recording movements, timing responses, mapping patterns. "They are not random," Laura reported. "There is structure we cannot see, but we can detect through behavior." "Explain," Nicole requested. "Watch how they respond to threats," Laura said, playing back recordings. "When one unit is attacked, others respond. But the response time varies. Some units react immediately. Others take longer. There is a hierarchy we cannot see, but we can measure." This was the breakthrough they needed. The hive mind was not uniformly distributed. Some nodes were more important than others. Some connections were stronger. There was structure hidden in the apparent chaos. Lieutenant Ben Walker's team conducted the first test strike against what they believed was a coordination node. They destroyed it and watched what happened. The Vrexian swarm in that sector immediately became disorganized. Units moved erratically. Attacks lost their coordinated precision. "It worked," Ben reported. "But they are adapting already. Response times are normalizing. They are routing around the damage." "How long did we have?" Nicole asked. "About 6 hours before they fully compensated." 6 hours was not much, but it was enough. If humans could hit multiple nodes simultaneously, they could create cascading failures across the Hive network. The plan was ambitious. Identify key coordination nodes across dozens of systems. Strike them all at once. Keep striking as the Hive adapted. Force it to constantly reorganize until it could not maintain cohesion. Colonel Jack Morrison coordinated the largest special operations campaign in human history. Over 200 teams deployed simultaneously. Each team had a specific target. Each operated independently but timed their strikes precisely. "This is crazy," his operations officer said, looking at the operational map. "We are spread across 50 light years. If something goes wrong, we have no way to support these teams." "That is always true for special forces," Jack replied calmly. "We train them to operate alone. We trust them to handle problems." This is what they do. The strikes began, 200 teams hitting 200 targets across Vrexian space. Coordination nodes destroyed or disabled. The hive mind suddenly lost its perfect synchronization. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Vrexian swarms that had moved with perfect coordination began to falter. Units received conflicting priorities. Attacks lost their timing. The overwhelming pressure on galactic defenses suddenly eased. But the hive adapted. Within hours, it began routing information through secondary nodes. The coordination started to return. The pressure resumed. "Hit the secondary nodes," Nicole ordered. The team shifted targets. New strikes against the hive's backup coordination points. Another wave of disruption. Another period of confusion. This became the pattern. Humans would identify key nodes, strike them, cause disruption. The hive would adapt. Humans would identify the new pattern. Strike again, over and over. "We are not winning," Jake Morrison observed during a strategy session. "We are just preventing them from winning." "That is enough for now," Nicole replied. "Every day we buy is another day for civilians to evacuate. Another day to build defenses. Another day to find a permanent solution." The permanent solution came from an unexpected source. A human scientist studying hive biology made a discovery. The hive coordination was not just mental. It was also chemical. The hive creatures released specialized pheromones that helped synchronize their actions. "Can we disrupt it?" Nicole asked immediately. "Maybe," the scientist said. "If we could introduce compounds that interfered with their chemical signals, it might degrade their coordination permanently." Captain Ryan Hayes' team was assigned to test the theory. They synthesized the interfering compounds and deployed them in a Vrexian-controlled system. The results exceeded expectations. The hive units in that area lost coordination completely. They began acting almost randomly, like individuals without purpose. "It works," Ryan reported. "The chemical disruption seems to damage their ability to share information. They are still dangerous individually, but they cannot coordinate attacks anymore." The galaxy's industrial capacity was turned to producing the chemical weapon. Special forces teams distributed it across Vrexian space. Slowly, systematically, the hive mind began to fragment. It was not fast. The war lasted 2 years, but gradually, the unified hive consciousness broke into thousands of smaller independent swarms. These smaller groups lacked the intelligence and coordination of the full hive. They became manageable threats that conventional forces could handle. The campaign required constant special operations support. Teams had to identify new coordination nodes as the hive fragmented. They had to deploy chemical weapons in dangerous situations. They had to adapt as the hive tried desperately to counter their methods. Kate Sullivan's team almost died during one such mission. They were deploying chemical weapons when a Vrexian swarm detected them. Cut off from extraction, they had to fight their way out. Only 6 of her 12 soldiers survived. "The cost is getting high," Kate reported to Nicole after recovering. "We are losing people. Every mission risks another team." "I know," Nicole said quietly. "But if we stop now, the hive recovers. We have to keep the pressure on." "How many more teams are we willing to lose?" Nicole had no good answer for that. Special forces operations always involved risk, but this campaign was pushing those risks to extremes. Teams operated deep in enemy territory with no support. Any mistake meant death. Lieutenant Commander Amy Rogers led a team that discovered a major hive coordination center. Destroying it could fragment dozens of swarms simultaneously, but reaching it required penetrating deep into Vrexian territory. "This is a suicide mission," one of her soldiers said, studying the route. "It is a high-risk mission," Amy corrected. "We have done those before. Not like this. We will be 3 weeks behind enemy lines with no chance of extraction. The war ended on a Tuesday, not with fanfare or celebration for those who fought it, just quiet acknowledgement that the mission was complete. The Vrexian hive no longer posed an existential threat. The galaxy was safe again. Colonel Jake Morrison stood in the memorial garden aboard the Resolute, reading names carved into black stone. 217 Special Operations personnel killed in action during the Vrexian War. Another 400 wounded. Dozens more who came home with invisible scars that might never heal. Captain Kate Sullivan found him there. She stood silently beside him for a while before speaking. The Council wants us to train their own Special Forces units. Every species is asking for advisors now. Jake nodded slowly. He had expected this. Victory always made everyone want to copy the winner. What did you tell them? I told them the truth. Special Operations is not just about tactics and training. It is a mindset. One forged by necessity. Humans developed these capabilities because we spent thousands of years fighting each other. We learned asymmetric warfare because we were often the weaker side. We got good at unconventional thinking because survival demanded it. And they did not like that answer. No, Kate agreed. They want the results without understanding the history, the capabilities without acknowledging the cost. They think they can learn in a few years what took us millennia to develop. The Galactic Council had officially requested human advisors to help establish special operations programs across member species. General Nicole Price agreed to provide support, but with reservations. You can learn the tactics, she told the first group of alien trainees. We will teach you infiltration techniques, intelligence gathering, sabotage operations, precision strikes. We will share our technology and our methods, but understand something important. Human special forces exist because we could not afford to fail. She paused, letting that sink in. We come from a world where nations rose and fell based on military capability, where the wrong strategic choice meant your civilization ended, where every generation had to learn warfare anew, because the previous war's lessons were already obsolete. That environment shaped how we think about conflict. The alien trainees listened carefully. They were eager to learn, motivated to succeed, but Nicole could see they did not fully grasp the implications. They were learning in peacetime what humans learned through blood and necessity. Lieutenant Commander Amy Rogers trained a Praxian Special Operations unit. The Praxians were competent soldiers. They learned quickly. They executed training scenarios adequately, but they lacked something essential. You are thinking like conventional soldiers, Amy told them after a training exercise. You want clear orders and specific objectives. Special Operations does not always work that way. Then how should we think? The team leader asked. Think about the objective, not the method, Amy explained. You were told to secure this building. You planned an assault. Textbook approach. Good tactics. But there was a much simpler solution. You could have negotiated entry, or found a back door, or convinced the occupants to leave voluntarily. You focused on combat when combat was not necessary. The Praxian team leader looked frustrated. But we are soldiers. We are supposed to fight. You are Special Operations soldiers, Amy corrected. That means fighting is your last option, not your first. You exhaust every other possibility before resorting to violence. You think creatively. You adapt constantly. You find solutions that others miss. This lesson was hard for many species to learn. Their military traditions emphasized direct confrontation, honorable combat, clear rules of engagement. Human special forces emphasized results by any means necessary. Captain Ryan Hayes worked with a Velthan intelligence unit trying to develop human-style information-gathering capabilities. The Velthans had good technology and adequate training, but they struggled with the human approach. You keep looking for electronic vulnerabilities, Ryan said during a training session. That is only one method. What about the people? What about them? A Velthan officer asked. People are always the weakest link, Ryan explained. Your target facility has perfect network security, encrypted communications, isolated systems. Electronic infiltration is nearly impossible. But people work there. People with problems, needs, desires. Find someone with gambling debts, or relationship troubles, or career frustrations. Offer them something they want. Let them give you access. The Velthans looked uncomfortable. That is manipulation. That is intelligence work, Ryan said. You want information. The easiest way to get it is convincing someone to give it to you. Humans have been doing this for thousands of years. It works better than any technology. But it feels dishonest, Ryan shrugged. It is dishonest. Intelligence work often is. You can feel bad about it or you can be effective. We choose effective. This was a recurring theme in training. Human special operations methods often violated alien concepts of honor and proper behavior. Humans focused on results, aliens focused on process. The gap between these philosophies was difficult to bridge. Sergeant Pete Bradley conducted a demonstration for military observers from a dozen species. The scenario was simple. Extract a hostage from a heavily defended building. The observers discussed various assault plans. Each involved significant risk and potential casualties. Pete listened politely, then shared the human approach. We would not assault the building at all. We would locate where the guards live. Visit their families. Explain that we have no desire to hurt anyone. Make them understand that cooperation means everyone goes home safely. Most guards are just doing a job. Give them an easy way out and they usually take it. That is coercion, someone protested. That is giving people choices, Pete countered. We could assault the building and kill everyone, or we can offer them a chance to walk away. Which option is more ethical? The observers had no good answer. Human logic was different. Alien morality focused on not using certain methods. Human morality focused on minimizing harm by any means necessary. The distinction was subtle but important. Major Lisa Chen briefed the Galactic Council on human training programs. The council wanted regular updates on how alien special forces were developing. The news was mixed. Some species are adapting well, Lisa reported. The Praxians show promise. The Velthans are learning. Several smaller species have natural aptitudes for certain special operations roles. And the problems? Veltix asked. Most species are learning tactics but not strategy, Lisa said honestly. They can execute plans we give them, but they struggle to create their own plans. They lack the creative thinking that makes human special forces effective. Why? Because creativity in warfare comes from experience, Lisa explained. Humans spent thousands of years finding new ways to fight each other. Every time someone developed a defense, someone else found a way around it. That constant cycle of innovation and counter-innovation shaped how we think. So you are saying other species cannot match human capabilities? I am saying it will take time, Lisa said carefully. What humans learned over millennia cannot be taught in a few years. The alien units we are training are competent. They will be effective in time, but they are not yet at the level of experienced human operators. The Council accepted this assessment. They had no choice. The Vrexian War had proven the value of special operations. Every species now wanted that capability, but building it would take longer than anyone had hoped. Back on the Resolute, the human special forces community was dealing with its own challenges. The Vrexian War had taken a heavy toll, not just in casualties but in the psychological impact of 2 years of constant, dangerous operations. Colonel Jack Morrison met with team leaders to assess readiness. The reports were concerning. Most teams needed rest and recovery time. Some soldiers needed counseling. A few needed to be rotated to different roles entirely. We pushed them too hard, Kate Sullivan said during one meeting. 2 years of maximum effort with no breaks. People are exhausted. We had no choice, Jake replied. The hive was an existential threat. We did what was necessary. I know. But now we need to think about long-term sustainability. We cannot maintain this operational tempo indefinitely. People break. Jake nodded. This was the hidden cost of special operations. The public saw successful missions. They did not see soldiers struggling with stress, trauma, and exhaustion. They did not see marriages failing because someone could not talk about what they had done. They did not see operators waking up from nightmares years after the fighting ended. What do you recommend? Jake asked. Longer rest periods between deployments, better support services, more emphasis on mental health. And honestly, we need to recruit more people. We are spread too thin. The problem is that special operations candidates are rare, Jake said. We can train tactics. We can teach skills. But the mindset we need is harder to find. Not everyone can handle this work. Kate understood. Special forces required a unique combination of skills and personality traits. Physical capability, mental toughness, emotional stability, creative thinking, moral flexibility. The ability to make hard choices under extreme pressure. Only a small percentage of people had all of these qualities. Lieutenant Ben Walker met with a group of soldiers who had recently